New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today for April 15th, 2025. If you live in the United States, it's tax day, except for like about half of the states that for some reason or another have been given an extension, often due to natural disasters, which I agree with. So some states are pushed back till May 1st. Some states, like parts of California, push back all the way to October. You don't have to file until October. But don't take my word for it.
That was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and don't take my word for it, folks. I'm not a tax accountant. But what I'm hoping, Z, is that I'm hoping it makes my returns go through quicker this year. A whole bunch of people aren't filing it.
It always appears to be. It always appears to be a random draw on when you get your money back.
Exactly. And for me this year, it looks really good, so I'm happy about that. We want them back quick this year. All right, folks, feel free to join in, chat along, chime along as we go along here today. It's always good to see everybody here. Good afternoon, Wayne. More woo-woo. We'll see about that because Z, we started getting into it a little bit here in our pregame show, as it were. That right, it's time to get really real, I think, with ourselves here in the United States.
Very much so. I mean, I'm from Florida, as some of you know, and I'm in North Florida, but I live down South Florida and would get the hurricane warnings, and they would say, hurricane so and so is on the horizon. They expected to hit landfall on whatever coast at category 1 through 5. Prepare. And we've all seen recently what happens with some of these hurricanes if you prepare or don't prepare, or if they come as a 5 as opposed to a 2. And just using that as a backdrop as we look at this new thought, religious science, metaphysical way of living and uplifting the environment, the world that works for all. There is clearly a storm on the horizon, given the current environment that we find ourselves in, politically, socially, spiritually, economically. You pick one, we can clearly see that a storm is on the horizon. And there have been predictions from a category 1 to a category 5, right? But the real question is, as spiritual leaders, as spiritual teachers, as spiritual practitioners, the question is, how do we prepare for the storm? And how do we tell people, oh, it's only going to be a 1 when, some indication saying it's going to be a 5, or vice versa, right? We're looking at it from both ends. How do we begin to teach and lead and act in a way that a storm is on the horizon?
Yeah. Um, it seems you say category 1 to category 5 kind of makes me laugh a little bit because uh, if history is repeating itself, this administration is going to grab a Sharpie and create a category 6 just by uh, uh, just because. And
I see what you did there.
yeah, okay. And it reminds me because right, it's springtime in the Rockies. And it's
Yes.
springtime in the Rockies, which means it could be spring, it could be summer in the morning and winter in the afternoon, or the other way around. And on Sunday, it was a glorious, beautiful day. It was a kite festival here in Arvada, and there were 50, 60-foot wide and 100-foot long kites and little kites and all kinds of kites, and they're all flying. And everybody's having a great day, and it's beautiful weather, and there's bands and food trucks and all that stuff. Monday morning was an inch of snow on my deck when I woke up. Today it's going to be lucky if it gets over 50, and it's been gray all day. So we if you live in Colorado, if you live in the Rockies, you know you've always got an extra sweater and an extra pair of boots and some socks in the trunk of the car, even in the middle of the summer. And you always have, you dress in layers, and you become aware of the environment around you. You become weather aware. And you're saying the same, right? In Florida, it's a different look. You can see it coming a lot farther away, maybe, but to deny that we are about to experience a weather event that on a nationwide level that no one has ever experienced, named, or survived before. Well, maybe that's not true, but that's what it feels like. To deny that, well, we're just ostriches sticking our head up our ass. I mean, in the sand, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about it before, and we've talked about it a lot. We're gonna talk about it again today some more. And I think when we look back over time and we looked at how people came together to form strong communities when they were faced with adversity, the cornerstone of it was building a supportive community and a community system. That was the key. Whether you go to any of the world wars, whether you go to the Depression, and pick any time of lean, that's when people came together and people begin to think differently. They begin to look more long range and short range at the same time, right?
Right.
And so now we have to begin first to what our principle is at the beginning is to teach people the principles and truths and laws of the universe, how they work, and then practice them, and then become a community member who supports that environment, those skills for everybody, whether it's in education, whether it's in food, whether it's in housing, whether it's just you can cry on my shoulder. That is what this time I believe is calling everybody to do that is spiritually minded.
So as you're sharing, I'm reminded, how spirit throws things in your head. I saw a meme last week that said, "Remember, Americans started a revolution over a tariff on tea."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
and
powerful. That's a powerful one there, man.
and it got me thinking: Are we at that precipice of? Are we at that moment where there needs to be a tea party of some, and not the predecessors of MAGA, not like where there needs to be an event, much like what happened in Boston way back when. Like, do we need to throw the Teslas in the ocean or throw the Fords in the Grand Canyon? Do we need to revolt? Right, that was a revolt against the ruling oligarchy, let's say at the time, what could be an equivalent spiritually here, without the violence, without the destruction, but from our spiritual perspective, what could be our Boston Tea Party, our Denver, well,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I believe we have to overturn this whole idea of being woke or being awake is a deficit.
mm,
And because right now the word woke that used to mean to be aware, to be alert, to be in tune, has now been bastardized, if you will, into something that says you're self-serving, you don't have any plans. I mean, it's just been and you're actually kind of bad. And we have to
you
turn
know,
that around, and we have to educate people, because one thing about that happened with well, one thing that happened with the Boston Tea Party, there was enough people awake enough or in tune enough to say,
yeah, I'm with you. And there's a piece for me that we've talked about this before. Liberals in general, the left leaning, the Democrats, however you want to label it, have a tendency to have a problem with the messaging, with how we label things. And it's not that the left got it wrong when it came to woke, but the truth is it's become like Karen. I think we've gone too far down the path to actually turn that term back around. I think there's far too many people that are misconstrued, misconceived, misinformed, and and do not have the ears to hear. And I just question it. It's kind of like trying to get the culture to stop using the name Karen as as a derogatory description, as a derogatory verb, right? It's so verb.
and I feel you, but this is the problem with some of these words, right? So like you were saying, Karen, there was the time that, if there was a white female who seemed a bit skittish when she was around people of color, they would say that that person was a Karen. Pretty much blown over now. If people see it, they see, uh, on some old meme or something. But these words now are haven't gone away. I mean, and they're not going
Right.
away for a while, because it now, as they say, it's been politicized or weaponized, if you will. And in
Yeah.
a lot of cases, it used to be that these words were used for racial epithets, right? Just like urban became black. You couldn't say black anymore, so you say urban. So now it's
Right.
woke, but woke includes anyone that's opposed to their ideas. So it doesn't, it's race, creed, color, doesn't matter.
Right. Exactly. And at that point, it's such a cultural divisive word because of the misinformation and because of the misappropriation of the truth there, that to me it feels like it's got to be easier to find a new term, find the next term, find the next word that hopefully others will say, what does that mean, before they say,
Mm.
oh well, screw you, that I know what that means, right? We need a term that makes people say what, rather than, oh, I already know what you're talking about. Uh, Kind of the
Yeah,
same problem
yeah,
we've always
that's
had
part
with
of
new
it.
thought and new
The
age,
shock
right?
factor. Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah. It's the shock factor. I agree 100%. And that's why I always encourage people when I give talks or when I have sessions or I just talk with a friend and we're talking uh, these kinds of lofty questions and answers, if you will. We got a gigantic thesaurus in our hands almost all the time. Start using the thesaurus and find a word different from the word that you always use. Because like you said, like if you say God, a lot of people, before you can get the D out of the God, people have already tuned out because they've heard the word. They have a lot of association with the word. They have a lot of objection to the word, the way it depends on the environment and the way it's been used. And so that you have to, we have to pick up a new vibration for that.
Right.
And almost all of the current ones, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, Krishna, almost all of those have worn out their welcome, so to speak. Spirit, all of these words.
Right. Let's go with George. I'm in with George.
And the first thing that happened, go ahead.
I'm in with George. Call it George. Right. And you hear me in prayers, I that litany of call it God or Buddha or Brahma or Yahweh or Vishnu or Kuan Yin or Source Energy or Gaia or Father Time or Holy Christmas, right? We each have our own relationship and our own understanding of that. We have to have the shortcuts to not have to go through that litany of terms every single time we open our mouths. And so for me, right, how do I channel the positive, the affirmative side of a word without, I guess, opening up to the criticism that comes for those that don't understand the word? Because that's what we're asking spiritual practitioners and spiritual people to do, is stand in the truth of a word, even when others are attacking you for that word.
And now I would even go a little rephrasing that or reframing that and step into his name Hawkins. He's out narrowly power had the energy associated with certain words and power and emotions, so forth.
Hawkins,
we have to find the energetic word. We have to find the energetic word that puts us in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
With vibration. It can go either way, but you have to investigate it. That's what's there's no more investigation. Nobody wants to observe anything. Nobody wants to be a magician or alchemist or an astronomer or any of these kinds of tasks where you have to be patient and observe before you act. You have to be inquisitive. You have to question. You got to prod. You got to probe. Not in a way to upset somebody, but in a humble way of saying, I need to understand. There's cause and effect. If I don't understand what it means to put my hand in fire, that's a problem. If I don't understand what it means to live in the community when the society is being forced into a more communal way of living and looking, I might be in trouble. So I need to get a point across that says you need to look at this. You need to evaluate this from all aspects of life.
Right. Folks, if you're just joining us wondering what you've stumbled into, this is New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network, and we're talking about facing the truth of what New Thought is and how we show up in the face of a brewing storm. And for some, it's already raining. And for some, we have to be willing to look and say, there are things that need to be changed. And we don't really know how bad the storm's going to get. There was a comment yesterday. I don't know if you caught this one yesterday, Z. The comment with what's his name from El Salvador. And at one point they said, the homegrowns are next, implying that it would be acceptable to ship homegrown criminals here in the United States to El Salvadorian prisons.
Yeah, or any prison that they have. You know, here's the thing: you have to, any prison. They don't. If he can strike a deal and set up a machine right now, the Supreme Court is just going along with what he says, right? But we're gonna stay spiritual. That's another front that we have to approach. But how do we how do we begin to spiritually get anchored? Because in a storm, now some people in a storm, you got in a storm like a hurricane, they say you gotta batten down the hatches, right? We know the wind could blow it over, but before all that happens, wind and rain and debris, we have to get anchored. My saying, I'd rather be prepared for an opportunity. I'd rather be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Right. So put that in the context of a storm. I don't want, if the storm never hits with nothing but zero, I want to be ready just in case.
Just in case. Yep. I agree. And we don't face it here in Colorado very much. There's another whole type of storm that has a tendency to hit in the Midwest, and not as wet and big or as long lasting as a hurricane, but sometimes even more devastating and short lived there. And what I've learned and what I've witnessed myself is that it is in those moments, we sometimes get taken by surprise. We sometimes see it coming, but in those moments, it's the people around us that help us to rebuild, and it is the people around us that we help to rebuild. And the power of the importance of community, the strength of community becomes so incredibly important in those moments.
And the shared vision of the community, the shared vision of making sure everybody at the bare minimum has what they need to actualize themselves. To make sure everybody feels safe, they feel fed, they feel loved, they feel valued. These are things that build trust. These things that build relationships and accountability and dependability. But those things are lacking right now, and I think in a majority of the communities.
Yeah,
spiritual or otherwise.
We had this big, huge global event that kind of forced us to stay away from our communities for a while, and really. I don't want to say intentionally because I don't believe it was intentional or anything, but the truth was we felt that it was unsafe to be in physical community, and some found solace in staying away. It's interesting. I shared a story with you, and we've talked about this on this program before, this move to change and repurpose office space to residential housing. And two rather large buildings in Denver just this week, it was announced, are doing exactly that. Someone's come in, purchased these two 10-story, I think they both are buildings, and going to convert both into residential housing. And it's going to take innovative ideas like that to do these types of things and be able to bring back a greater sense of community that perhaps, we're still rebuilding out of that in a new and different way. So, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. When you look at, let's just take New York City for its vibrancy and what it has to offer, not all the other stuff, the high prices and everything. But when you look at, a place like New York, for sure, similarly would be Chicago or Philadelphia in ways, but their whole city is built on a community vibe, right?
Yeah.
They have neighborhoods within the city, but the whole, at least for Manhattan, the whole of Manhattan has the environment of a community, one big one. But the thing is, they have, like you were saying, commercial and residential and everything together. Now, you don't want it too densely packed because it creates another problem, but it gets people to exchange in a community. You got commerce there. You got, I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where we had everyone from blue collar to doctors and college professors, but it was one big community.
Yeah. The old cities on the East grew up as walking cities, right? We don't have that as much anymore. Bigger cities, Western cities, as we grew west, we grew out of that sense of, and born of necessity, or just born of opportunity. Again, when you can sleep upstairs from your business downstairs, it made for a much tighter sense. And I do believe that is part of the calling that we are facing in the coming years. And it's the part of the opportunity that we're being given by the coming storm, by what is coming our way. It is not the end, but it is an opportunity. So, and hey, folks, speaking of opportunities, we really do need to take an opportunity to let a couple of our sponsors say hello, let you learn a little bit more about some of the things that are going on around New Thought Media Network, and for Rev Z and I to refill our tea mugs. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of New Thought Today in just a moment or two. Stay tuned.
Are you passionate about media, storytelling, and making a difference? Welcome to New Thought Media Network, where your voice matters. We amplify diverse voices and share impactful stories. Join us in our mission. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to creativity and community, looking for enthusiastic volunteers who want to be part of something bigger, learn, grow, and collaborate in various aspects of media production. Incredible support and camaraderie await you here. Your contributions will help us create powerful content that resonates with audiences and drives social change.
Ready to make a difference? Visit our website www.ntmedia.org to learn more about volunteer opportunities and how you can get involved.
Find our volunteer inquiry under the Engage tab on our website, or visit www.ntmedia.org/volunteer. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
Science of Mind Archives and Library is thrilled to celebrate the gala grand opening of our new home at Unity Village. While we wish everyone could join us in person, we understand that's not possible for everyone. That's why we're excited to announce a live stream option. Tune in to our YouTube channel on Friday, April 25th at 6 p.m. Central Time for an unforgettable evening featuring a keynote address from Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings, musical inspiration with Karen Drucker, and the spiritual leader of Centers for Spiritual Living, Reverend Dr. Sonny Cantrell Smith, and the spirit of Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. Including exclusive content you won't want to miss. Grab your virtual ticket to this amazing event today with a $25 donation. Sign up today at www.scienceofmindarchives.com.
And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. And, to me, Z, this is one of those places, these opportunities that we get in the New Thought movement to come together in community, to come together and celebrate something. In this case, the move and the grand opening of the Science of Mind Archives. And folks, if you've watched this program, you've heard us speak of the archives before. And I feel we have a great partnership with them as we're creating the kind of material they're going to be storing in the future. So all this stuff will end up in their hands eventually. But it's and as I've been looking at the guest list and watching the people that are signing up and seeing that now we have a live stream opportunity that folks will come together, that's, to me, a vital component to it all. Before the pandemic, early on, people looked at community as it had to be physical and in person, and we kind of maybe threw in this virtual thing if you couldn't quite get here. But the last 5 years have really changed that, and more communities have a strong virtual presence, and maybe in some cases even struggling a little to rebuild that physical in-person community. And I don't want to see anybody give it up. I think it's incredibly important, but it seems like it's becoming a little more tricky to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting there thinking, I was daydreaming a little bit because no one can resist a good story. Now, you make a genre, but no one can resist a good story. And what I see the archive doing of all the different New Thought is to begin to tell a story or retell a story. How they republish the books. So we want to republish this idea of New Thought that came along during times of difficulty, right? Science in My textbook was what, 1926, a couple of years before the Depression, which at that point, storms were already on the horizon. But here are a group of people who looked at life based on all kinds of adversity. Let's just call it what it was, right? Whether it was physical sickness or spiritual sickness, they came up with an idea that stood the test of time, that made it through those places and those spaces that threatened life itself. And it came together as a community. And that's what the archive says to me. It's a retelling that story. This is a teaching. This is a universal truth. These are the principles that will allow you to smile whether you're in hard times or so-called good times if you apply the principles.
Right.
If you understand and work with the laws.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sirree. And here's part of it too. For me, it feels like there really are more and more people every day that are waking up, that are becoming woke to this greater truth. I saw something this morning, actually, and it's somebody that teaches New Thought outside of the concept of spirituality completely. Someone that is a business coach, that is an executive coach, and has remade herself as a truly inspiring influencer of culture, and that is Marie Forleo. And part of the reason I bring her up is that this wasn't one of what she promoted this morning, and what I saw wasn't a program by her. It was a program where she was being invited in as a guest to be interviewed by someone I had never heard of, and someone who the interview was incredibly fun because it felt like the person doing the interview, conducting it, was just discovering all of this stuff for the very first time. And the topic they were talking about was procrastination, but Marie would really, kind of let out do a little coaching and share a little something. And whether that was this person, I don't know him again. I've never heard their podcast before. I've never seen their interviews. Whether that's their shtick or whether this was his really authentic experience, it felt like this person was coming to an absolute epiphany of giddiness in how amazing this is, because this was all, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, yeah, we're in the basics 101 for me. And it was the reminder of the promise that every day we continue to share these thoughts and these prayers and these messages and this philosophy, if one new person hears something new, if one person that's just getting on the path hears something new, if one person that's been on the path just a little while hears something new, we are doing a great service and more people are waking up.
Well, there's the thing that I take away from that is this idea of the ancient ones, if you will. They looked at life eternally as a mystery every moment. There's that quote by T.S. Eliot that says, you start at one place, and I don't know it exactly, but you come back to the same place and you know it for the first time. Out of all you thought you knew, you come back to that point and you understand it for the first time. This idea is much like the idea we talked about, how people describe God. Even these new thought principles have been quoted so much, people are relaxed. People don't really take them to heart. People don't really engage them unless you come back, you've experienced life, and you hit point zero and you know them for the first time. You know exactly what cause and effect is now, because you stuck your hand in the fire and you got burned. And you had to put a salve on it and a Band-Aid on it, and took 6 months to heal. And you say, okay, I understand for the first time, all that stuff I thought I knew it a little bit, but I don't know it in the eternal creation of the universe, which is the divine intelligence in action.
Mm-hmm. Looks like our dear friend, Brother Raymond, is with us here today. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
There we go.
Yes.
Thank you, my brother. That was Mr. T.S. Eliot. He has some interest because he lives life curiously. How do you write a whole book about a seagull for adults? That Jonathan Livingston Seagull, I think he did that one, didn't
he? I believe so, yes. Classic American literature is not my...
We have to be...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we have to become curious again. That they have the Bible thing where it says, be ye as little children. That's because children are curious. Children aren't, when they see, you take a kid to the grocery store and they see someone in a wheelchair or someone that's not considered standard, whatever that is, that kid is going to go and ask the question, why? What happened? Tell me, and it won't be personal. It won't be any kind of angle. It's just like, I'm curious because I'm looking at A and B and C and I don't get it. But we as adults, we worry about hurting somebody's feelings or am I going to say it just quite the right way? Am I going to put the right, Richard Bach did the seagull. Am I going to do all these things that by the time I've run all that through my head, the pure idea that I want to speak out, I done lost it because I done synthesize it and shut off this word for that word. And now the whole essence and energy of the thing is dead. And that's what's happening with our teaching, I believe.
We've grown up. We've lost that curiosity, that sense of curiosity. As you were sharing, it came to me that we've lost, and I've had this conversation this last week, actually, and I have it every so often. We've lost the demonstrations. In the early years, this stuff was so woo-woo that it was important to demonstrate, to prove, to create the proof, to create the demonstrations, to document what it is that was happening, and to document our experiences of it. And in many ways, the quote teaching of it, we have lost that sense of, I don't want to say needing to prove, but that feels what's right. We've lost that sense of being driven to prove this stuff works. And we have those sayings. Johnny Coleman, right? It works if you work it, is about the demonstration of it. Change your thinking, change your life is about the demonstration of it. And now we have the law of attraction, and we have other other ways of saying, yeah, I know this stuff. Yeah, I understand this stuff. Of course I understand this. Of course I know that. But are we really proving it? Are we creating that body of evidence that says, yeah, I use this stuff. I get results. I demonstrate.
Well, and you know, you go back to the old saying, the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
The proof is in the pudding. And that's what we have to begin to be that. And we just have to figure out how we're going to tell the story, i.e., be the story. We have to be the story. And we have to tell the story, because the story, and that's why when we look at history, when we look at spiritual training in all systems, a lot of them are storytelling. A lot of it is storytelling. It's storytelling. And so when we can get that and tell the story, people can see themselves in the story. But just giving a bunch of instructions doesn't always work that well.
Exactly. People don't like to be told what to do, but they sure want to know what to do. But they like to ask what to do. What should we do, right? What can we do here? And I do as well, and I know you do as well. We constantly want to know, okay, what should I do here? What's going to be the most effective? We're facing a storm. We know we got to batten down the hatches. Or do I might not have time to build a storm cellar. I might not have time to get on the other side of the field and get to a storm cellar, but I need to know what I need. And I think people just want to know what's the most effective. And for me, if it's inspired, if it's divinely inspired, not much of a question. But finding that sometimes can also be the challenge.
Yeah. But that is the challenge, right? Because that requires you to be curious. and people aren't looking for curiousness. They're looking for, I think, people are looking to be just sit around on the beach. And nothing wrong with sitting on the beach. And I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm just saying, life is about living. It's not about not living. And the way you live is exploration. Come back for the first time. I got a whole new way of looking at it. The way you look at a nice meal when you were 6 years old, and the way you look at a nice meal now at whatever age you is, the same thing, but it's totally different. You might start asking questions like, what country is this cuisine from? Are there other ways to do? As a kid, you just wanted to eat.
Exactly.
Right? Now, so if we begin to look at life in that same kind of thing, it becomes a whole different approach to eating.
I'm going to go over to Raymond, because I didn't know Pinocchio was in the Three Little Pigs.
I didn't either.
Was it Pinocchio? Pinocchio wasn't in the Three Little Pigs, but I get your point here, Raymond. Do we know the story and the reason that stories were told the way they are? Yes, right. Oftentimes we don't. Okay, good. So I'm worried I was getting a little old here. um, exactly. And again, how does New Thought face the coming storm that we see in the current political administration and in charge of America at the moment? And the story, it is through. So if I'm kind of tapping into Brother Raymond here, the origins of the way we kept the truth were through storytelling. The way we kept the truth and passed the truth from generation to generation, not to rely on the virtual and the digital. And we're going to try to do that, but we also have to remember that in today's age, the digital story you see may not be the actual truth. And if I haven't seen it, if I'm not experienced, and that's where community again comes in, we can help to validate what works for people and not concern ourselves with what works for governments as much as what works for people, and not concerned with what works for companies as much as what really works for the people.
You know, you bring up a good story as we talk about stories, right? But this idea, when we look at spiritual and philosophical and ideological teachings, which they all kind of fit in the same basket, when we look at the indigenous communities that took those traditions of telling stories that way, it was a full body immersion. It was singing, it was dancing, it was storytelling. So that at a visceral level, you begin to understand and connect with the story at a, as they would say, a primal level. And again, it's in the mystery. We've forgotten that we have to be, there has never been a machine made more complex than this human body and this human mind. It's powerful enough to create AI, which everybody thinks is going to take over the world. AI didn't create us. We created AI. And so we have to begin to understand. There's a program on right now called The Americas, Tom Hanks' documentary showing nature and how it's connected, so forth, a bunch of stuff. But I was watching from the other night, and it was talking about Patagonia, which is like 1,000-mile range of mountains on South America, life and in the connectedness of it, right? We have to get back to that kind of visceral understanding. That's what these old ancient society, whether it's Native American, African, Middle Eastern, Polynesian, they did that. They gave you a sense of feeling about something that resonated at a deep level. And we've lost it because we're not curious anymore. We think we know everything.
Right. I like what love that Brother Raymond's here with us today. Do we tell a story that's rooted in prophetic vision, or do we tell a story rooted in bypassing? And I trust that that's how people find us is here.
No bypassing.
Exactly, no bypassing. And so we know there's a storm coming. We see it, we say it like it is, but we tell a prophetic vision of how we survive this story, of how we weather this storm, of how we move into, how we use this opportunity to build into the new, and to prepare for the building, to prepare for what's going to come next. I keep coming back to that. Everything works out in the end. If things aren't working out, it's not the end. And we're gonna continue to use the tools. I say, I want to start a campaign, and where we can highlight. What if we have a new segment called the Demonstration of the Week? And we invite people, send in your demonstrations. Tell us your demonstrations. Tell us how you use these principles to affect change. And we can highlight those from week to week and in other avenues and in other ways, because to me, celebrating each other's wins raises the consciousness, raises the vibration more rapidly and in a stronger and in a more bonding way than ever. And I think it's time for that.
Yeah. I mean, these teachings, which are universal teachings, right? They've been around since humanity was curious enough to ask the question. And they still work. They can still be demonstrated. They can still be used to change outcomes. They can still be used to uplift people. There's to create more creativity. But we have to practice. We have to study. This is my mantra for this year. This is not a spectator sport. You cannot sit on the sidelines of life and be engaged in it. To be engaged in life, you have to be engaged in life.
Yeah. If you want to be alive, you better be alive. I love it. Thank you, Z. All right, folks, we're going to take another real quick break. Let our sponsor let you know a little bit more about our organizational sponsors and individual donors. Say thank you to all those folks. But we're not done yet. We'll be back with more of New Thought Today right after this web message.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Yes. Thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. It's thanks to folks like you that we're able to continue the conversations that we have and share this New Thought message around the world. We appreciate you being a part of what we're doing here. If you'd like to learn more about being a committed giver to our program, please head on over to ntmedia.org/donate and we can find some more information. All right, Z, we're about at that point. Look at that. We have effectively invested a good hour in this conversation. And I know I'm a bit clearer on what's in store for me. We're going to, before the storm gets here, how about we wrap this up with some final thoughts, sir?
Sure. I think for me, the final thought is get involved. Get involved and practice. Now, whatever it is that you have, whatever gift, whatever insight that you have, get involved with it so that we can begin to create this ideal of I am my brother and sisters keepers, and they will have the same idea, so we will build a valuable community.
Beautiful. All right, you just heard it. Get involved. That means if you're watching this program and you'd like to be a guest, send us an email, Brother Raymond. We got a lot of Tuesdays coming up that we're available. But more importantly, I want to come back to to part of what you were saying at the end of the last segment there, Rev Z, and that is that life is not a spectator sport. We got to get involved and practice, just like any other sport out there. Get involved and practice. And I guess in a nod to unity and oneness, this is a sport where nobody cares whether you're male, female, transgender, whatever. Just come join in. Get involved in practice. It's all good. Everybody's welcome here. All right, folks.
Yep.
We left Raymond speechless. Love you, brother. Folks, thanks for being with us here today on the New Thought Media Network. We're here every Tuesday. However, our schedule is always full here on the network. You can find more on our website, ntmedia.org. If you look at that, all kinds of fun programs happening. And there's one on here that I want to highlight for you. It happens in just a couple hours, 4 o'clock Mountain Time, 1 hour from now, The Roots and Branches of New Thought with Reverend Dr. Ruth Miller. Check that out. It's a really, really, really good program. So, Z, I got a question. Who's, let's send it out to the audience. We know we're going to have Brother Raymond back on soon. Who else would you like to see on this program in the near future? Who should we invite in?
You know, I would love to. This is anyone who's listening. I would love someone who listens to the program on a somewhat regular basis to come on and share an idea with us.
Beautiful. All right. There's the opportunity, folks. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, we love you. We thank you. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and absolute richest blessings. Bye now.